Let me ask you something. How many times have you replayed a mistake in your head, wishing you could go back and do it differently? That job interview you blew, that relationship you let slip, that one decision that changed everything for the worse. But here's the truth. Most people run from. You can't erase the past, and you shouldn't want to, because your mistakes, yes, your most painful, shameful, embarrassing failures, are the blueprints for your future greatness, only if you know how to read them. Welcome to Shadow Mastery. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's not about pretending everything happens for a reason or telling yourself it's all okay, because sometimes it's not okay. You messed up, you chose wrong, you fell, you hurt others or yourself. But instead of hiding from that truth, we're going to do something most people never dare to do. We're going to stare directly into the wreckage of your past and dig for gold. Because when you master your shadow, you stop being a victim of your past. You become the architect of your future. Mistakes are not dead ends. They are data points, feedback loops from life itself. Every time you fall, you get an insight, a strategy, a warning, a lesson. The problem is, most people don't extract the lesson. They either bury the pain deep, pretending it never happened, or they replay the failure so often it becomes their identity. You are not your mistakes, but you are responsible for what you do with them. This speech is your guide to transforming regret into clarity, shame into power, confusion into strategy. And we're not going to do this by speaking in vague affirmations. We're going into real tactics, real psychology, real stories. You're going to learn how to analyze a mistake without drowning in guilt, how to extract useful patterns and actionable lessons, how to turn emotional scars into strategic wisdom, and how to build a success mindset that's grounded in truth, not illusions. Because success isn't born from perfection. It's built on scars, on failed launches, broken deals, heartbreaks, and humiliation, only if you learn how to leverage them. This is the art of shadow mastery, using the dark to dominate the future. So, if you're tired of hearing sugar-coated advice that doesn't apply to the real chaos of life, if you're ready to take control of your narrative, no matter how broken it feels right now, then let's begin. Because your past doesn't define you, but it does prepare you, if you're willing to face it. Before you can learn from your past, you must do something that 99% of people refuse to do. Look at your mistake head on, without excuses, without sugarcoating, without blaming anyone else. Because the shadow isn't just what happened to you, it's also what you did, what you allowed, what you ignored. And it takes brutal honesty to admit that. Let me give you an example. I once coached a young entrepreneur who launched a promising online business. He had vision, energy, branding, everything except discipline. He'd stay up late, partying, delay campaigns, ignore analytics, and when the sales dipped, he blamed the economy, his team, even bad luck. He was smart, but he was also lying to himself. And you know what? The moment everything changed wasn't when he hired better staff or spent more on marketing. It was the day he looked me in the eye and said, "I'm the reason this business is failing. I didn't take it seriously enough." That was the day his real success began. Because when you finally stop hiding from the truth, you stop living in illusion, and you start building from solid ground. Your brain will try to protect you from pain. It'll offer you every excuse in the book. It wasn't your fault. They didn't treat you fairly. You didn't have enough time. But none of that helps you grow. It just keeps you stuck. The truth is harsh. But it's also liberating, because once you see clearly, you can choose differently. Think back to one of your biggest failures. Maybe it was a toxic relationship you stayed in too long. Maybe it was a project you abandoned right before it could have succeeded. Maybe it was a pattern of procrastination that cost you years. Now ask yourself, what was your role in it? What signs did you ignore? What truth did you avoid? This is where shadow mastery begins, not with blame, but with ownership. Because when you own your past, you reclaim your power. You're no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You become the driver again. And here's the twist. The more you own, the more control you gain. This doesn't mean shaming yourself. It means understanding yourself deeply, honestly, even painfully, because you cannot fix what you won't face. In this part of the process, I want you to write down 3 of your biggest mistakes. Not just what happened, but what you did or didn't do that contributed. Then for each one, write one sentence that begins with, "If I had been honest with myself, I would have realized that." This one sentence can unlock years of stuck energy. It breaks the spell of denial. It shatters the illusion. And in its place, clarity. So stop flinching. Stop hiding. Turn on the lights. Look your shadow in the face. Because only when you stop lying to yourself can you start building the truth of who you're meant to become. Mistakes aren't random. They may feel unique, like isolated disasters, but if you look closely, really closely, you'll often see something that most people never notice. A pattern. See, failure doesn't usually strike just once. Different people, different situations, but the same underlying issue. You lose another opportunity because you hesitate. You sabotage another relationship because you don't communicate. You quit another project just before the breakthrough. Over and over. Again and again. Until it stops looking like bad luck and starts revealing the truth. Let me tell you a story. There was a man. Let's call him Daniel. Daniel had a string of failed startups. One collapsed from cash flow issues. Another fell apart due to team conflicts. A third just fizzled out. Different stories, right? But when we sat down and traced every single failure back, there it was, the pattern. Daniel had a fear of confrontation. Every time a difficult conversation needed to happen with investors, co-founders, or employees, he disappeared. Delayed, softened the blow, and that avoidance killed every venture he started. The problem wasn't just the failed businesses, it was the hidden loop of fear behind them. And Daniel isn't unique. We all have patterns like that, built from childhood, trauma, habit, ego, or fear. And until we name them, they run us. So I want you to look at your 3 mistakes again. This time, not as events, but as data points. Zoom out. What do they have in common? What part of you keeps showing up in the wrong places? Is it perfectionism, fear of rejection, impulse and emotional reactivity, lack of planning, avoidance? You cannot change what you don't understand. So this step is about becoming a detective of your own life. Write this question down and answer it for each mistake. What did I repeatedly ignore, deny, or avoid in this situation? Then go one level deeper. Where else has this pattern shown up in my life? When you identify the pattern, you reclaim leverage. You stop reacting blindly. You start acting strategically. Remember, life will keep handing you the same lesson in different disguises until you learn it. Every mistake is a mirror. Every setback, a signal. Shadow mastery isn't about eliminating darkness. It's about reading the code written in that darkness. And patterns, They are the language your shadow uses to speak. So listen closely, not just to the noise of your failures, but to the rhythm beneath them. Because once you see the pattern, you can break it. And when you break the pattern, you break the cycle. Pain is powerful. Shame, regret, anger. These aren't weaknesses. They are raw fuel. But most people drown in them instead of converting them into power. Here's the truth. Your emotions are not the problem. Your lack of a system to channel them is. You felt it. That stomach-turning guilt when you remember how badly you messed up. That wave of anger when you realize how long you let someone manipulate you. The crushing regret of letting yourself down. Again, those feelings are intense, but they're not useless. In fact, they are the most potent tools you have. If you know how to wield them, think of them as energy, like a fire, left uncontrolled. They'll burn your life down. But if you build a furnace, if you learn how to contain and direct them, they'll become the heat that powers your transformation. Let me give you an example. There was a woman named Maya. She was cheated on by her fiancé, lost her savings in a failed business they built together, and ended up moving back in with her parents. She spent months in shame, blaming herself for being so naive. She isolated, cried at night, scrolled through old photos, and tortured herself with memories, until one day, she did something radically different. She took all that pain and turned it into a training plan. Every emotion became a rep at the gym. Every regret became a cold email to a new client. Every ounce of anger became fuel for building her new brand. Fast forward 2 years, she was running a 6-figure consultancy and mentoring other women who had gone through betrayal. She didn't get over her emotions. She channeled them, and you can do the same. Pick one emotion tied to one mistake. Shame, anger, guilt, whatever's strongest. Now ask yourself, what would this emotion do if I gave it a productive outlet? Here are some ideas. Guilt can fuel responsibility. Let it push you to repair what you broke or build something better. Anger can become focus. Use it to cut distractions. Speak clearly and set boundaries. Regret becomes precision. Let it refine your decisions and timing. Shame can become humility, a reminder to stay grounded and honest, even when you succeed later. The key is to take the feeling and assign it a function. Give it a job. Don't let it just sit there and rot in your chest. This is where shadow mastery becomes alchemy. You're turning poison into medicine, darkness into light, emotion into motion. Because if you don't direct your pain, it will direct you, and it always chooses the wrong path. Destruction, self-doubt, paralysis. So turn the tables, harness the storm. Make your darkest emotions the most disciplined soldiers in your army, not by denying them, but by training them. Because when your pain has a purpose, you become unstoppable. Here's something no one tells you about growth. Willpower will fail you, motivation will fade, and inspiration, that's like caffeine. It wears off fast. If you're serious about mastering your past and turning it into success, you need more than emotion. You need infrastructure. Because success doesn't come from heroic bursts of energy. It comes from systems, from structure, from habits that hold you when motivation dies. Let me be real with you. You won't always feel strong. You won't always feel focused. There will be days when the past comes crawling back, whispering you're not good enough. And on those days, you don't rise by emotion. You rise by design. Let me share a story. There's a man named Chris, a recovering addict. He'd relapsed 7 times, each time telling himself, "This time I'll be stronger." But he wasn't. Because strength isn't enough. Not when you're exhausted, lonely, triggered, or afraid. What changed? He stopped trying to be strong and started building a system. He removed all alcohol from his environment. He set daily check-ins with a sponsor. He installed apps that blocked certain websites. He created routines for stress management, workouts, cold showers, journaling, and he made it easier to succeed than to fail. That's what real mastery looks like. Not brute force, but intelligent design. So, what does that mean for you? Take the pattern you discovered in your past mistakes and ask, what system can I build to stop this pattern from repeating? If procrastination was your poison, maybe your system is a morning ritual with deep work blocks, a public accountability partner, blocking distracting apps before work. If emotional reactivity was your weakness, your system might include a 10-minute delay rule before responding to conflict, a journaling habit to process triggers, meditation or breathing routines built into your daily calendar. Your system should be automatic. It happens without requiring emotional energy. Simple, easy to execute even on bad days. Visible, something you can track and adjust. Because when you rely on emotion, you're inconsistent. But when you rely on systems, you're inevitable. This is where most people fail. They get clarity, they get motivation, and then they go back to the same environment, same habits, same schedule. You can't build a new life on the foundation of your old one. You must rewire the structure. And this isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about engineering success. Because systems don't just stop failure, they generate progress. It's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but it works. So ask yourself today, what system will protect me from the version of myself I no longer want to be? Then build it. Brick by brick, trigger by trigger, habit by habit. And when you do, your past doesn't just stay behind you. It becomes the blueprint for something unshakable. You can't outwork a broken identity. You can build systems, you can channel emotions, but if deep down you still believe you're a failure, you'll find ways to prove it true. Behavior follows identity. Always. That's why people lose weight and gain it back. Why they start businesses and sabotage them. Why they leave toxic relationships only to attract the same kind of person again. Because they changed their actions, but didn't change who they believed they were. So let me ask you this. Who are you right now? And who do you believe you deserve to become? If your answer is shaped by your past mistakes, it's time to rewire that identity. Let me introduce you to a client I once had. Liam, brilliant strategist, failed 3 major projects. He came to me saying, maybe I'm just not a finisher. That identity became his prison. But when we unpacked it, the truth was this. He had been afraid of success. He feared the pressure that came with winning. So he'd unconsciously sabotage himself right before the finish line. So we rewired his identity, not by affirmations, but by evidence. Every day, Liam completed one small task and tracked it. Every time he finished something, we celebrated, not emotionally, but structurally. Finishing became part of his identity script. I don't need to feel like a finisher. I just need to act like one long enough for it to stick. That's the move. You don't change your identity by hoping. You change it by living as if the new identity is already yours. So here's the exercise for you. 1. Name your old identity. The one shaped by past mistakes. Is it the quitter? The overthinker? The one who always gets hurt? 2. Define your new identity. Be specific, not just better, but something like, I am the person who completes what I start, or I am the one who turns pain into clarity. 3. Create proof loops. Tiny, daily actions that confirm the new identity. Track them, speak them, act like them, until you become them. Because when identity changes, behavior becomes automatic. You no longer have to try so hard. You just are. And here's the secret. No one tells you. You don't need to wait until you're perfect to adopt a new identity. You can live it now, messily, imperfectly, but consistently. Every day you live in alignment with the future version of yourself. You cast a vote for that identity to become real, and eventually you stop trying to escape your past because you've outgrown it. That's what true shadow mastery looks like. You're evolving, you're rewiring, you're becoming someone stronger, smarter, and more strategic. But here's the truth. Nobody wants to admit growth without protection is fragile. It's easy to slip back into the old identity, not because you're weak, but because your environment is still wired for the old you. Let me say this clearly. You can't heal in the same environment that broke you. You can't rise in a circle that expects you to stay small. You can't build a new future in a place that only remembers your past. So, now that you're building forward, you must protect that progress. And that means one brutal but necessary move. Audit your circle. Ask yourself, who around me reinforces my old identity? Who benefits from me staying small, predictable, and broken? Who gets uncomfortable when I start acting differently, more powerfully, more focused? Because some people don't want to see you grow, not because they hate you, but because your growth threatens their comfort. It reminds them of what they haven't done, and your new discipline exposes their laziness. Your new clarity makes their chaos harder to justify. So they'll joke about your changes, mock your new habits, tell you you're too serious now, and slowly try to pull you back into the identity you've outgrown. Don't let them. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You don't owe anyone a version of you that keeps them comfortable. You owe yourself loyalty to your evolution. And it's not just people. It's places, habits, digital environments, the books you read, the content you consume, the energy you absorb. Everything around you is either feeding your future or reinforcing your past. So start asking, does this space inspire me or drain me? Does this friend call me higher or pull me lower? Does this habit protect my power or leak my progress? Because here's the law of shadow mastery. Your evolution must be defended. This isn't about cutting everyone off and becoming a hermit. It's about conscious selection. Who sees you? Who respects your journey? Who helps sharpen your edge? Keep them close. As for the rest, you don't need to hate them. You just need to outgrow them. Quietly, firmly, without apology. Because your growth is sacred, and you've sacrificed too much to let it be undone by comfort. So protect your evolution like your life depends on it, because it does. Up until now, we've been focused on growth, discipline, strategy, but there's one last step that separates those who evolve from those who stay trapped in a cycle of self-rejection. Integration. See, true mastery doesn't come from killing your old self. It comes from embracing it without letting it control you. This might sound strange, even uncomfortable, but let me explain. Your past self, the one who made the mistakes, repeated the patterns, acted from fear. They were trying to survive. They were doing the best they could with the tools they had. And while they caused damage, they also carried you through storms that many wouldn't have survived. So, if you want to move forward in power, you must stop hating the old you and start learning from them. You cannot be at war with your past and expect peace in your future. You cannot shame yourself into transformation, because what you reject, you repeat. Let me share a story. There was a client of mine named Arya. She had climbed out of a brutal depression, rebuilt her career, and become a confident speaker. But she still felt like an imposter, because inside, she hated the weak, broken version of herself she used to be. She rejected that girl so hard that every time she stumbled in the present, she felt like she was becoming her again. Until one day I told her, what if that girl didn't need your judgment? She needed your gratitude. That changed everything. She wrote a letter to her old self, thanked her for surviving, for enduring pain without quitting, for giving her something to rise from. That shift from rejection to respect freed her, because when you stop seeing your old self as the enemy, you stop living in fear of becoming them again. Instead, you become their evolution. So here's your practice. Write to your old self. Yes, the version of you that lied, failed, betrayed, avoided, the version that you've judged, ignored, or buried. Tell them this: I see you. I understand why you did what you did. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to carry you forward, because that's the final act of shadow mastery. To integrate the darkness, not eliminate it. To become whole. You don't become strong by pretending you were never broken. You become strong by building a bridge between the two. And when you do that, you stop running. You stop hiding. You start embodying everything you've survived. That's what makes you unstoppable. Not perfection, but integration. So today, let your past self sit at the table, not to lead, not to sabotage, but to witness how far you've come. And maybe, just maybe, thank them for the fire they carried, when all you had left was smoke. Let's take a breath. You've walked through the shadows. You've faced your past, decoded your patterns, turned pain into strategy, built systems, rewired your identity, protected your evolution, and learned to honor, not hate, your former self. Now let's make something very clear. Your past is not a prison. It is not a curse. It is not a prophecy of failure. Your past is a blueprint, a field of data, a source of fire, and above all, a weapon. Most people carry their history like chains, dragging the weight of guilt, shame, fear, failure. But you're turning those chains into armor. You're reforging them into tools, into weapons, into wisdom. You are not your mistakes, but you are the blacksmith who can melt them down and forge something legendary. So, let me ask you this. Now that you've made it to the end, what will you build with everything you've been through? What kind of life can only you create because of what you've survived? That heartbreak, that betrayal, that collapse, those weren't detours. They were assignments. Life didn't break you. It built you. It stripped away your illusions, your comfort, your false identities, and left you with something real, fire. And now you know how to wield it. You don't need to wait until you're perfect to start. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need permission. What you do need is this: radical clarity on who you no longer are, ruthless commitment to never repeat what broke you, unshakable loyalty to your future self. And from this moment on, that's the standard, that's the code, that's the way forward. So stand tall, not because your past is spotless, but because your present is intentional, and your future, it's being built by someone who has earned their power. You are not broken. You are forged. You are not starting over. You are starting sharper. This isn't the end of your story. It's the part where the world starts watching. So walk boldly, lead powerfully, speak clearly, and act relentlessly. Because your shadow is no longer your shame. It's your strength, your strategy, your advantage. Your past doesn't define you. but it equips you. Now use it.